All right, we'll call this meeting of the Lower McConchy Township Planning Commission to order. First item on the agenda. Well, I guess actually we have a roll call on our agenda, which we haven't done before, but I won't call them, but I'll just note for the record that Martine Mininger is not here, and Jessica Rosenbrook is not here. And our solicitor is joining us remotely. We have on the agenda the approval of minutes. To make that motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes from November 12th, 2024.
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. 3 ayes. Motion carries. And then we have two applications for review. Actually, one of them is not going to be here tonight, so you can remove the 617 North Crocs mixed use from your agenda, which brings us to 1208 Brookside Road. Bud, if you'd like to come up, and if there's anyone else joining you, if they'll also introduce themselves.
Eric, the church is here with me.
Great. And if all of you can just for the record, if all of you can introduce yourself on the microphone so we can have that for the record.
I'll go first while Bud's setting up there. I'm Eric Dahlstead, co-chair of the building committee at Bethany United Methodist Church.
And I'm a co-chair, Steve Shaver.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, bud. Hey, bud. Hey, bud. Yeah. Just let me know when you want me to start. Okay.
We're here tonight to talk about Bethany United Methodist Church. We're here last month to talk about the lot line adjustment and the proposed addition that they were going to put on the church to provide better rear access to the church and the ADA. We withdrew that land development plan, and we're only here to talk about the lot line adjustment. So if you could start, Vince. I think you're all familiar with the location of the church along Brookside Road. The church was originally begun it's at 1208 Brookside Road. You can flip over the first aerial picture, sheet 2. It's on 1208 Brookside Road. It presently consists of 4 properties. The access is onto Brookside Road and was surrounded by the Brookside Villa land development. Right now, the church maintains the detention pond, which is on 3 of the lots. The church was originally built in 1968, and there was an addition put on the church in 1991. And as part of the 1991 expansion, additional right-of-way was dedicated to the township. PennDOT has a 25-foot legal right-of-way out there along Brookside Road, and there was a dedication of 40-foot ultimate right-of-way to the township that was done in 1991. You can flip over the next page. Right now, as I said, there was 4 lots. The biggest lot, which church is on, is 4.9, just under 4.9 acres. The other 3 lots are about 0.44 acres. Lot 2 and lot 3 is 0.44 acres, and then lot 4 is 0.87 acres. When you combine those total, The net acreage is 6.64 acres. Next slide shows the combined lot then, once the waiver requests that we're going to have, then is in regard to dedication of additional right-of-way. The ordinance requires us to dedicate between along Brookside Road, which is an arterial road, would require the dedication of a 50-foot right-of-way along Brookside Road. This next slide shows the section of the saldo that in regard to dedication of the right-of-way. And as we have in the waiver letter, which is on the next page, you know, that it is a project-specific request. We previously, you know, as far as we know, PennDOT has no plans to widen Brookside Road, but even so, with the 40-foot half-width, 80-foot total width right-of-way, PennDOT could construct 5 lanes, 5 12-foot lanes, and you would have a 10-foot area on each side of that, or sidewalk and residually the 80-foot right-of-way. So there's really no need for the additional 10-foot right-of-way. If we do require the extra 10 feet, as you'll see on some of the subsequent slide, that we do get into the detention pond. You want to flip over the next slide? You can't see it very well right now, but the additional 10 foot gets you into the grading of the detention pond. And we've had discussions at the last meeting of the problems with that detention pond. The detention pond was designed using 1977 standards, and it does not meet today's requirements. So if there is a need to increase the size of that pond at all, or if we want to make pond any bigger, or you want to, you know, if there's anything, need to do anything with that pond, if we were dedicating the additional 10 feet, you're not going to be able to do it if this additional 10 feet is dedicated to the township. So our feeling was, since PennDOT doesn't need that road, they're not going to be widening the roadway. Since the township's not accepting that right of way anymore, we think it would be better if we waived that requirement for the additional 10 feet of right of way. And there also, in addition to the problem with the detention pond, it will make, if you flip to the next slide, it would make the church more non-conforming. Would push the building restriction lines right up against the church and make the church building itself more non-conforming with the additional 10 foot right away. So we didn't see any real need for the additional 10 foot of ultimate right of way. We think it would be in the township's best interest and the church's best interest if they did not have to dedicate the additional 10 feet. So the two things that we're asking for in the next slide is the waiver of section 512.1 of the saldo in regard to the dedication of the additional 10 feet of right of way, and then we would ask for your approval of the lot consolidation plan. Right? Your recommendation or approval for the. Is there any questions about the need for the waiver? You know, that again, we think it's probably the township's best interest to, and the church's best interest to approve that waiver.
Can I get clarification?
I was gonna say, if you want to jump in here,
Yeah.
there's,
I just want to clarify something. There's a bit of a difference in my opinion, there's a difference of ways to look at this. How the additional right-of-way was taken earlier in time was before my time, certainly, and as Bud has correctly pointed out, township no longer takes right-of-way on PennDOT roads. But I think it's worth clarifying that at this point in time, I don't think the township has any intentions to take this additional right-of-way. So I think it would be appropriate, if this was land development, to request a waiver of the frontage improvements. That's different from the right-of-way itself. So I think maybe a waiver of taking the right of way, sure, but I think the offer should still be made and the offer of the right of way, but also, just as importantly, perhaps more importantly, all of the zoning criteria apply to the establishment of the ultimate right of way in terms of net lot area, building setbacks, and then the respective coverages. Bud's correct. The lesser area will have a bit of an impact on the nonconformity. However, my assumption is it's relatively minor regardless. And currently, the church parcel that will be merged with these other three parcels will get bigger. Therefore, the existing nonconformity of impervious coverage will be reduced. So it's a matter of degrees of what we're talking about. In other words, if, for instance, the coverage for impervious surface is calculated to 40% to the current township right-of-way of 40-foot half width, and then you tack on that extra 10 feet and the impervious surface jumps up to, picking numbers, 42%. It's still non-conforming, but it's still a reduction of what the nonconformity is now, prior to the lot line adjustment and the consolidation. So I think from the perspective of what the plan is really trying to accomplish, certainly have no objection to the church or any property owner for that matter, consolidating the parcels. It makes sense. It's a state highway. The township, to my knowledge, has no intention of doing any improvements out there in the near future. So the impact to the basin itself is really kind of non-existent. Bud's right that if the right-of-way line moves over, the right-of-way will then be within the impoundment area of the basin, but we don't anticipate anything happening. And I think it provides the plan with not only a more accurate depiction of what's going on with the property, but it also follows precedent. PennDOT's not going to take the right-of-way either. PennDOT traditionally doesn't take any more than they actually need. So it's a bit of a formality, and I think that it'd be better to maintain township policy and precedent moving forward and say, we don't feel like, I don't think it's worth waiving it, but I also don't think it hurts the applicant if we don't. If that sheds some light on.
I do have some concern, though, if something happens, like, for example, right now along Hanover Drive, as put it out by CKS when they came out to inspect the site, there was a sinkhole on it's on the berm of the pond. We have a sinkhole that occurs on this section of the basin. We technically would have to go back to the township and get approval to go in to fix that sinkhole. Why would the township want to get involved in that? If that property is offered for dedication, it's an extra formality that the church would have to go through.
An offer is not taking it. It's just an offer on the plan, and it would be an offer to the agency.
Well, I think it's a restriction, though, that we would have to go get someone else's permission. They have the township would have the right to have some control over that, since the offer is sitting there. Would they, I guess that's a question for Mark.
If we were talking about a township road, I think it'd be an entirely different conversation. Because then there might be the need for the township to get involved. But as you've correctly pointed out, the 40-foot half width already was addressed with a prior land development, and it's a policy that no longer exists. So it's an extremely unusual and unique circumstance. So my point is, the township has no intention of taking that additional 10 feet. It's the church's property. It's an offer of dedication. Nobody's going to take it in the near future. And if the church had to go fix a sinkhole in the area that is township right-of-way, I think at the very least, it'd be a matter of a courtesy letter to the township saying, we got to go take care of this. This is not something that anybody's going to put their foot down and say, no, you can't do that. because it's our right of way. In what I've described is basically showing the 50-foot half-width right of way, ultimate right of way line. Calculations need to be changed relative to that. Offer is shown on the plan to the agency having jurisdiction, and it just stays the way it is. That's it. Nobody's taking that right of way anytime soon. I'm not sure, I understand what you're describing, but practically speaking, I just don't see that happen anytime.
I see it as an encumbrance on the title, which is unnecessary because, you know, if no one's ever gonna take it, why place that additional encumbrance on the title of the property? But
It does, and I'm correct in saying this, it does exist on every other property that this comes up, right? It's not unique that way. The first part of your property is unique, but this part, the part that we're discussing of concern exists. I mean, that's the Lomer Country Township policy. And I think we should stick with policy. I understand to a degree your concern, but it's not novel to you. It exists everywhere. Correct?
oh yeah, we've been through, how many times have we been through it, you know?
Exactly,
I'm
exactly.
not-
That's why I say the
I'm
concern
not-
hasn't come up before and the policy's been in existence. I guess
Yeah,
that's where I see it.
I think we had a kind of unique situation here that it gets into the pond itself. We
I
know
understand what you're
we have problems with the pond to start with, so, you know, I think we're asking for a future problem here that we could avoid by the waiver.
Gentlemen, any comments that you have or see it differently? Mr. Solicitor, any comments that you wanted to add from a legal perspective?
Not really. I mean, Brian's correct. It's an offer. If the township's not accepting it, then the township hasn't taken any rights as to it. So it's just an offer. It alleviates some issues down the road if the township does need to take it. But as Brian said, he doesn't see any reason that we would. It's a PennDOT road. But you put it on the plans. It's on every set of plans that Brian reviews, to my knowledge, in the township. So it's consistent with policy.
Which I think is important, so. But I'm assuming that you have seen the pre-drafted motion.
Vince pointed it out to us a moment ago, and I don't know if these guys have seen it yet.
We want to take a moment just to review that to be sure that
Recommend approval of plan, development plan, of the consolidation.
the first part gets you your lot line adjustment. The other part is just the addressing the waiver.
We have to take this anyway, we're gonna ask the waiver, but I think what about proceed on commissioners?
And it's worth noting, as your counsel just said, is we're the advisory board.
Yep.
Our recommendation goes to the commissioners. If they feel differently, they'll vote differently.
Yep.
But the idea is the planning commission makes a recommendation to them. This is where these bigger discussions happen, more detailed stuff. And then when it gets to the commissioners, maybe they see it differently and they vote differently, or they stay consistent with Lomer Country Township
I think
policy.
it's worth us making the request to the commissioners again, but, you know, if you've heard the engineer's comments, so we'll solicitor's comments, and we'll see what comes up there, but I think if we're ready to move ahead to the commissioners. Cool. Eric, you okay with it? Good, thank you.
All right, so we have a motion in front of us. Does anyone want to recommend that motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of 1208 Brookside Road lot line adjustment, which consists of 2 items. The first one being approval of the lot line adjustment, and the second one the denial of the request for the waiver of the saldo requirement.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Hearing none, it's a 3-0 vote.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Early night tonight.
Early night, yes. I know a few people joined a little late. The second item on our agenda is no longer on the agenda. they are not appearing tonight, so that was the only item. Is anything else that we had for the meeting? Any comments?
No further comments
Anyone
here?
else? Any comments? Well, in a 20-minute meeting, we'll take that here at the end of the last meeting of 2024. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
I think it's crazy.